Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I. I want to discuss a very important topic today. Does love come from God? I talk to believers now for many, many years, and the assertion is made that love comes from God and not humans. So I want this message to go out today. We're going to discuss where love really comes from, and let's talk about the Christian perspective on love and what it is, and where does it really come from. Not long ago, I was out talking to a believer. We had a nice little friendly debate, and he told me, he said, David, you seem like a nice guy. I'm sure you have love, or at least what you think is love, but your love is fake because you're an atheist. There is no way you can understand the true concept of love because love is from God only. And of course, he believes a Christian God only. So this is the Christian perspective. And before I go there and read an article from a Christian pastor, a brief, very rudimentary definition of love. And I'm not going to get into the depths of this beautiful feeling and animal feeling that many of us have. It is an intense feeling of deep affection. So the Christian perspective, I'm going to quote from a Christian pastor from a major church here in the United States. And he's a Baptist, evangelical Christian. Quote, we are totally, yes, totally incapable of loving others. Wow. Without, and of course, without God. This must be corrected by God before we can love. Where does this idea come from that this beautiful feeling of deep affection that we have for others comes from a God? Well, of course, here I go again, right back to the source of it, where these people get their ideas from. There's a guy called John the Apostle in the Bible. Those of you that remember the Bible, remember the disciple of love, John. So here's where this pastor gets his idea. And if you're a questioning and doubting believer, I want to welcome you to my show. I'm glad you're watching, and I'm going to go back to my roots. My original premise and objective of my show many years ago was to attempt to reach Christians and other people that believe in the supernatural who are on the fence, who have doubts and our fears and questions. So I want to help you to understand this and help you to think and sow some seeds of doubt along the way as well. 1 John 4 says that love is from God. There it is. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Well, that's testable. I'm an atheist. I understand what love is. I have children. I have grandchildren. I have relationships with people. I do understand what love is. And it says in verse 8, the one who does not love does not know God, for God is love. So there's the premise. There's the causation of the beliefs of Christians that love only comes from the Christian God. It goes on in verse 16, God is love, and the one who abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him, and so forth. Also in verse 23, we go back and it says, this is his commandment, that we believe in Jesus and love one another just as he commanded. Now, I talked to another Christian a week ago. He was telling me how Jesus commanded him, as a Christian, to go out and to love other people. Of course, my question was, do you really need a command? Do you need a book written 2,000 or 3,000 years ago to command you to go out and be kind, empathetic, and kind and loving to other people? Well, I don't think we do, because I think it's innate in us to have this beautiful emotion. So no, we do not need to be commanded to love other people. Now, here's the alternative. Here's scientific data, overwhelming evidence that helps us to understand what this feeling is that the social animals all experience. It's analogous throughout the animal world, and not only the human animal, but many others. This beautiful emotional feeling of love. Does it come from a God? Well, here we go. Secular scientific perspective or overwhelming scientific data and knowledge, something we actually know. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that's produced by the endocrine glands, organs, and cells. If you've done any kind of education reading and science reading, and you remember back in school, you learned about the endocrine system that produces these chemicals called hormones. The hormone of oxytocin plays a major role in various behaviors and functions in the human animal and many other species of animals as well. Now, let's talk about some of these functions. This is interesting to understand, and if you're a believer, let's talk about this. Where does this deep feeling we have for others come from? Does it come from the biblical God? I'm going to say it comes from natural selection and evolution. Number one, pair bonding. We understand that concept. We have these deep feelings for someone else to pair up for what? For procreation, for the existence of our species, to mate up with someone from the opposite sex for the next generation, to procreate. Our oxytocin helps us to have that feeling. Also, social recognition. Notice we're talking about social groups. We need this hormone called oxytocin to produce that. Here's a big one, maternal behavior. Now, I'm going to make a quote in a statement which I use quite often. In fact, this statement is so powerful that I just wrote a song about this. And I wrote this about my mother, someone that I may never see again, since my father disowned me a few months ago because of his knowledge of my atheist activism. My mother is 87 years old, and I'm going to make a bold statement, and I would say to anybody, this is irrefutable. What greater love is there? What greater example do we have in reality? I'm not talking about what the Bible or Quran claims. What greater example of pure love, the closest thing to pure altruism, if there is such a thing, do we have than a mother's love? A mother's love across the animal world and nature, human animal, and other species of animals. Can you show me a greater example of pure love than a mother's love? Maternal behavior. Now, to me, this is irrefutable. What else does oxytocin do? It plays a major role in in-group bonding and also social behavior. Now, back to my mother. My father will not allow me to call and to have discussion even with my mother. I wrote a song called There's No Greater Love Exists Than a Mother's Love. And I would hope to actually speak at her funeral one day. I probably will not be allowed, but at least I wrote a song about her, about the overwhelming scientific data and evidence we have of the closest thing to pure altruism we have is a mother's love. And this is produced from that hormone of oxytocin and various other compounds that we have in the human, animal, and other social species. So, does love come from a God? I'm going to say no. We have it as a human species. I don't need John chapter 15 where Jesus said, a new commandment I give you is to love one another. We know to do that. And so the greatest love on earth, Jesus said, no greater love has this than a man lay down his life for a friend. I'm going to say the greatest love we know, known to humanity, is a mother's love. So stay tuned for the next episode. I'm going to get into part 2. We're going to talk about love again. So have a wonderful day.